In this section, we want to look at inequalities. Inequalities are very similar to the previous section where we're isolating a variable. The only difference is instead of things being equal, they're greater than or less than or equal to or this kind of stuff. So let's take a look at how we deal with inequalities. It's basically the same way with one exception. So here we have 4x minus 7 is less than or equal to 9. Don't forget that if the symbol is this way, it's less, and if it's this way, it's greater. And one way I learned to remember that is this kind of looks like an L, more like an L than this one anyway. So therefore, this is the less sign, and this is greater. If it has a line underneath, that means or equal to. So let's take a look at how we do this. Well, we do this one exactly the same way as we did in the previous example. We add 7 to both sides, like so, and we get 4x. The plus 7 and the minus 7 cancel out, and this just stays the same, less than or equal to 9 plus 7, which is 16. Divide by 4, divide by 4, x is less than or equal to 4. So we basically just use it exactly as an equal sign in this case. Let's look at another example. In this example, it's slightly different because we're going to divide by a negative number. So first, we need to isolate the x's. So to do that, we subtract 7x from this side and subtract 7x from this side. And at the same time, I'm going to subtract 2 from this side and subtract 2 from this side. Plus 2 minus 2 cancels out. Plus 7x minus 7x cancels out. So now we have 3x minus 7x, which is negative 4x. Keep this the same for now, greater than or equal to. Minus 1 minus 2 is minus 3. Now we're going to divide by negative 4. Divide by negative 4. When you multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, you need to switch the equality. So x is now not greater than or equal to, it's less than or equal to negative 3 over negative 4, which as a decimal is 0.75 positive, since they're both negative. So the only difference between what we learned in the previous section where these were equal and the inequalities is that if you multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, you do need to switch the sign of the equality. Here's one where we have kind of a lot going on. So first we have to distribute some numbers, and then we can simplify. So minus 3 times 2x is minus 6x. Minus 3 times 1 is minus 3. It's greater than for now. Minus 2 times x is minus 2x. And minus 2 times positive 4 is minus 8. We have to do the same thing as in the previous example. Get the x's on one side and the numbers on the other. So I'm going to add 2x to both sides, add 2x, and I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Plus 3 minus 3 cancels out. Minus 2x plus 2x cancels out. So now I have minus 6x plus 2x, which is a total of minus 4x. I have minus 8 plus 3, which is, minus 8 plus 3, which is negative 5. So now I have essentially where I was before. Now I divide both sides by negative 4. Divide by negative 4. This is not an equal. This should have been a greater than sign. Now that I've divided by a negative number, I do need to switch the signs. So x is not greater anymore. It's less than. And you can just leave this as 5/4, or if you want to put it as a decimal, it's 1.25. Again, they're both negative like in the previous example, so the overall answer is positive. Here's another example here where we have fractions. So we have an inequality and we have fractions. Well, in order to do this, we need to do the same job as before. We need to, basically simplify this. So to do this, we have to first subtract, because there's a negative half x on this side and a positive 2/5 x on this side, and then this is just a number. We need to bring the x terms, the like terms, together. So we can subtract 2/5 x. And what you end up with is minus 1/2 x minus 2/5 x is less than or equal to minus 5/4. Now we have fractions that we need to essentially subtract here. So we need a common denominator. Of course, you could do this on a calculator, but I'm going to do it using common denominators. So in this case, we have 2 and a 5, so 10 is the common denominator. So I'm going to multiply this one by 5 over 5, and I'm going to multiply this one by 2 over 2. So 5 times 1 is negative 5 over 5 times 2, 10. Still x. This one's still going to be negative, minus 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 5 is 10, x, less than or equal to minus 5 over 4. So now what we can do is combine these terms because they have a common denominator. So what we want to do is minus 5 minus 4 is minus 9 over 10. X is less than or equal to minus 5 over 4. Now we want to divide by minus 9 over 10. Dividing by minus 9 over 10 is the same as multiplying by negative 10 over 9. So that's basically what we're going to do. Note that we divided by a negative number, so we need to switch the sign. So x is greater than now or equal to negative 5 times negative 10 is 50, and 4 times 9 is 36. To simplify this, you have a common denominator of 2, so I can divide this one by 2 and divide this one by 2, and what I end up with ultimately is x is greater than or equal to 25 over 18. So this is how you can simplify this inequality. Note that this brings back the fraction stuff. That is the first section of this pre-chapter of the general chemistry book. It's also important to note that these inequalities work very similarly to the equal sign. The only difference is you switch the sign when you multiply or divide by a negative number. We don't use inequalities super often in chemistry, but they are used at times, and they are used in some upper level courses as well.